So I have started laying out the components on my perma-proto board, and so far that's what I have. That's the IC, the resistors, the diode, and then the wires that I need around the board. The only other components I'm going to have to add are the MOSFET, linear regulator, and the capacitors, and then also the potentiometers are going to end up being soldered on here. Then I'm going to also have to have a couple of wires coming off of where the MOSFET will be mounted that will lead off the board to go to my 1 ohm resistor, my ammeter, and my terminal, my terminals. I'm also going to need to have a couple of wires coming off the board for my fan, and a couple of wires coming off the board for my for my barrel jack. So probably the next thing I'm going to want to do is go ahead and solder down what I have here, and then I'm going to want to go ahead and fit my MOSFET, and I'm thinking what it's going to end up doing is sitting out like this, and then I'll have this heat sink that'll end up sitting on it like that. I'll have to get some heat sink epoxy, but a little nut and bolt, that'll work fine for now. And that's going to be, the main cooling mechanism on my MOSFET there. I was hoping to have that more centralized, but, that's just where it's going to fit on the board. And then my capacitors and my linear regulator are going to go over here. Next thing is going to be soldering down what I currently have on the board. Then I'm going to have to solder up the ammeter, 1 ohm resistor, and all the wiring I'm going to need essentially for my test loop, and figure out how I'm going to wire these up to the board. What I'm going to end up needing to do, I believe, is get some wire and use my wire strippers to cut myself some nice thick gauge wire, and then solder it. And I have some heat shrink tubing, so the plan is to solder some good wire onto that test loop, use the heat shrink tubing, and then solder that onto here, and then with my potentiometers. And once I have all of that put together, and I'm also going to have to put my switches in here. I need to have a switch on my test loop, and I need to have a switch on my power supply line, between my barrel jack and my board. I'm going to need to go ahead and get the switches put into here somehow. But that's not going to be horrendously difficult. That's just another component to add to the test loop, and another component to add to the to the barrel jack, with some slack on it. And once I have it all put together, then I'm going to want to test it before I try putting it into the box. And once I know it works, just on the board all by itself, I'll be ready at that point to then start looking more closely at how things are going to fit in the project box and get that all put together.